Hello and welcome to the Sports Sunday Olympic Games special. I'm Jake Hurst.
And I'm Elle Rudd. Coming up on this week's programme, we look into the sacrifices made by athletes in preparation for Rio 2016.
We show you the difference between a quaffle and a snitch.
And we'll be asking the question, if the Northwest became its own country, how well would it do in the medal tables? But before all that, let's talk about the Olympic Games. The Olympics are the biggest international sporting event in the world. Athletes from around the globe compete in a variety of competitions to try and bring medals back to their country. But it wasn't always this big.
Yes, cast your minds way back to 1896 and the first edition of the Olympic Games, which was held in Athens, Greece. Back then only 241 athletes competed and there wasn't even a medal coming in third place. The winners were awarded a silver medal, an olive branch and a diploma, whilst those who finished second were awarded a bronze medal along with a branch of laurel and another diploma. Our times have changed, Dave.
Fast forward to 2016 and Brazil's Rio de Janeiro is hosting the 31st edition of the Olympic Games. And it's to be the first ever hosted by a South American country. On the 5th of August, 11,000 athletes representing 206 different countries will begin their Olympic journey. Over 17 days, the best athletes in the world will compete in a total of 42 sports or 306 events with the hope of taking home a gold medal.
Now, we could talk about the Olympics for hours on end. So to help us with that, we brought along a very special guest. And this week is none other than sports journalist, athletics blogger and huge fan of the Olympics, Eve Langford.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, Eve.
Thank you.
So to start off, you're from Much Wenlock, aren't you? So the birthplace of the modern Olympic Games.
Yes, I am. It's a bit of a local obsession, the Olympics. There was a PE teacher back in 1850 who decided that the whole town needed to be fitter. So he started an Olympian Games every summer in order to try and help local people get more healthy. And we've carried it on. The whole community runs this Olympian Games and they're still going on today. So it's a big part of my life, the Olympics.
Would you say this is where your obsession with the Olympics began?
Oh yeah, definitely. I used to run for the athletics club, so I'm actually an Olympian, even though I've never anywhere near national level. So it's a huge part of my life, athletics and the Olympics.
Wow. What is your favourite Olympic sport?
Oh, athletics is yes. My favourite, but I like any sports at the Olympics. I always take off 2 weeks in the summer to watch all of them and see what happens to all the British athletes. So I love the cycling and the swimming and the more unusual sports. I got really into taekwondo last time, so who knows what it'll be this time.
So would you say that one of the best things about the Olympics is the way it brings the whole world together for this brief moment? Everyone's united. How would you say?
Yeah, oh absolutely. It's really unifying. I think I lived in London when 2012 was on and a lot of people left the city for a few weeks because they thought it was just going to be bedlam. And it turned out just to be the most wonderful experience. Everyone was so happy and there was people from all over the world and there was just celebrations going on all the time. Everywhere you went there was somebody helping out somebody else and it's just a great event and I think it brings people together but it just sort of brings like this wonderful party spirit to a place as well. So I'm sure Rio is going to show London what it's made of.
So personally, my favourite moment from past Olympics when Mo Farah won the 10,000 metres in 2012. I can remember running down the home straight and the crowd going absolutely ballistic. If you could look back in time, what would you say is your favourite moment from past Olympics?
I think Mo has given us all some amazing moments, but somebody who did the double before him was Kelly Holmes in Athens. And I remember watching that and just crying my eyes out thinking, God, this is amazing. Because she'd always been a bit of a also-ran really. She'd never really got onto the podium. She was always injured and she was 34 years old. So no one really had any hopes for her. And she beat Maria Matola, who was unbeatable at the time. And she crossed the line with this expression on her face of absolute disbelief. And Steve Cram in the commentary box was going, "You've got it, Kelly, you've won the Olympics." And that was just incredible. And then she went and won the 1500 metres as well. So yeah, for me, that was magic.
Now for me, my favourite Olympic moment is a bit of a bittersweet one really. It's Derek Redmond in the 98 Olympics where he pulled his hamstring halfway through his semi-final for the 400 metres and everybody thought it was over because he'd been doing so well and then at the last minute his dad jumped over the barrier through all the security and past the guards and picked up his son and helped him to the finish line and then let his son go so he could cross it himself. Aww. And even though it's a really tragic story of his Olympic hopes being dashed, it's one of those memories that everyone will have where we'll never forget it because it's so heartwarming as well as being heartbreaking.
Absolutely, yeah. I think heartbreak is something that British fans are quite used to. We've seen so many people get so close, and then out we go, and it's like England penalties, isn't it? Really, but or England trying to get the baton round is another example. But yeah, that was an amazing moment, and just for the fact that he pulled his hamstring before he'd even got to 200 metres, and to walk on a hamstring injury is absolute agony. So it showed how much it meant to him that he had to cross that line. It wasn't even the final, it was the semi-final, and he just had to get there, and he was absolutely sobbing on his dad's shoulder. So yeah, the Olympics, it means that much to people, and it's just it's a really special event.
Yeah, the Olympics really is a competition where just these spectacular things can happen. You see things like that. Would you say that this is regular throughout all the competitions? It's just that event where things can just happen.
Yeah, it's an underdogs event, that's for sure, and people that you would never expect to come through. I don't even remember when Jade Jones won her Taekwondo gold medal, and she just threw her hat in the air, and she just went absolutely mad. And the amount of people that cried, there was the rowers that cried that they'd let people down when they got silver. It's incredible what it does to people, and what differences things can mean to people, because Tom Daley got his bronze and celebrated, as everyone said at the time, like it was gold, because he'd had such a terrible year and he'd lost his dad. And it meant so much, and so it can mean different things to different people, but it's such a special time.
Yes, indeed. So we'll be talking to you throughout the show, and if you want to get involved with the show and join our discussion, don't forget you can send us a message on Twitter @EdgeTV_sports and use the hashtag SportsSunday.
Now, it's not all fun and games when it comes to the Olympics. Despite what was shown on TV, every single athlete appearing at Rio 2016 will have gone through years of intense training, making sacrifice after sacrifice throughout their journey to the Olympic Games. Coming up later this month, Edge TV will be showing an exclusive documentary about this subject created by aspiring filmmaker Colin McKevitt. The documentary looks at the sacrifices made by local athletes as they attempt to achieve an elite status. And we at Sports Sunday managed to get a sneak peek.
I'm proud of what I've achieved, and I'm proud of, I suppose, the effort that I've put in. All of these opportunities, I've no doubt contributed to who I am today.
It's the people around you that have to really take the hit, and you have to make sure that you acknowledge that fact. You have to make sure that they know it.
Let's go, boys!
For you and I, boxing is perceived as an individual sport. But when we take a closer look behind the scenes, it's absolutely evident that having a supportive network around you is critical.
There was a gap of about a year when I broke my hand. Obviously I was looking after my mum, but I was still training. It was like I'd stay overnights at the hospital on my Lilo, and then I'd be up at 6 and then I'd go training, and then I'd train all day and I'd come back and sit with her and stay the night again. The day she died in the morning. I went training in the evening.
I remember I would be selected for Ireland or I would be selected for the Lions, and people would say to me, oh, you're lucky. And I wasn't lucky. I had worked for it. I believe anything that's worthwhile in life, you've got to earn it. And I believe that I earned it, because these guys were probably sitting in a pub or out enjoying themselves while I was training, while I was out running or doing my training. I wasn't lucky, I worked for it.
Brilliant stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing the full documentary, and you can see the full thing as well on our website. Just go to www.edge-tv.co.uk/sportssunday. Now, I just want to ask both of you a question. So the documentary brings up the issue of the elite status and how it's thrown around really easily. What would you say? Would you agree with this?
I do. I think it's a strange term, elite, because of course if you're competing at a certain level, then you should be considered elite. If you're competing internationally, I would say myself that is an elite athlete. Yeah. However, if you're not getting the financial support that from the Central Federation for your sport, then actually you're not a professional athlete because you're having to support yourself. So it's a strange mix where people are trying to get to a certain level to be able to get funding, but you're only going to get that funding if people think you're going to win a medal, but you can only get to that level if you get the support. So it's a bit of a vicious circle, really. So I think elite is a strange word because it doesn't really encompass the amount of effort that people are putting in, because it is only for those people that are getting that full funding.
Now, recently you wrote an article where you went training with Sarah Bundy Davis about to see how it was. How was this working with Bundy Davis?
Well, it was really difficult. I had to go and do a tempo session with her. They asked if I wanted to come down and watch them train. I was like, oh yeah, no problem. But what they meant was join in. So I had to join in with her training group. And Steve Ball, her coach, was very nice and said, oh no, don't worry, you don't have to do them all. But I'm very competitive, so I was like, I'm fine, I can do them. So I tried. I managed 6 out of 8 200-metre reps before my legs nearly fell off. And then I just stayed at the side wishing I'd never been born whilst they did another 2. And she is an amazing athlete. She was about 70 metres in front of me on every rep, and I was running as hard as I could. And I used to be a sprinter when I was a kid, so yeah, it was an amazing experience.
What kind of sacrifices do you think Sarah Bundy Davis has to make?
All sorts. I mean, she's a full-time student as well as being an international standard sprinter. So not only is she training 7 days a week, she does weights, she does sprints, she does endurance, but she's also got exams, coursework like anybody else. But she can't have that sort of blowout that a normal student would. Yeah, you're not going to see her down Mojo's or somewhere dancing on the tables. She's working incredibly hard at both disciplines. So all fair play to her, because a lot of people couldn't do that.
No.
So do you want to be an Olympian after your experience?
No. I think that dream was long gone for me. I'd nearly a master's age anyway, but that was the dream when I was a kid, but I was never good enough. So I've pursued my own, which is to become a sports journalist, so I get to be around the sport that I love anyway. So this is perfectly good enough for me.
Now, usually at the Olympic Games, we see a huge variety of sports on show, and this year's Olympics are no different. A total of 42 different sports will be on show, including golf and rugby sevens, which are making their debut in this year's Games. Now, I'm a huge rugby fan, so I can't wait to finally see it at the Olympic Games. Right, I've been calling for this for years now. Rugby sevens, very different to the typical Six Nations style rugby games or what we saw at the World Cup, which was huge. Now, with that high paceness, it's only a 10-minute aside and a championship final 7 minutes aside normally. How do you think, because you're a huge rugby fan as well, how do you think the audiences are going to adapt to seeing it and the sports?
I hope that they're going to really respond positively. I think it's going to be a great addition to the Olympic catalogue. It's not a sport that you see contested at a high level, but there's no international level competition
it's
for
more
it.
Of a Southern Hemisphere thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And we play it over here, but again, it's not something that a load of people are aware of. So for a start, as terms of British viewers, it might really help the sport grow here, and probably our rugby participation altogether. Yeah. But also, I think it's a great addition to the Olympics because of the sort of, as you say, the fast-paced element. Yeah. It's something very exciting for young kids to cotton on to, and it just gives a completely different sport to watch compared to what's already going to be out there.
Now, for the players, it's more of a sprint than a marathon, in terms of speed and pace. Do you think because as we said, it's Southern Hemisphere sport, so they're more used to it down in Australia, New Zealand, Samoa. Do you think that our players are going to be able to adapt?
I mean, our players, often the younger ones, do tend to play it to a certain level, at club level. I think we should be able to field a pretty decent team. We always do. I mean, if our Lions side is anything to go by, then we should be fine. Yeah. Although, I mean, you can't discount the Aussies or New Zealand in any kind of rugby. And I think this could be a great opportunity for New Zealand to get a gold medal. I mean, you just can't write them off, can you?
No, definitely not.
So you've mentioned rugby sevens, but I'm actually really excited to see the golf introduced to the Olympics this year. So originally it was introduced in the 1900 and 1904 Olympics, but they decided to cut it. But I'm really glad to see it back, actually, because as you know, so many role models in golf. It's a world-renowned sport, and it can be absolutely thrilling. I don't know if any of you watched the last Masters, did you?
Yep.
So Louis Oosthuizen scored one of the most incredible hole-in-ones ever, as you probably agree. So he hits the ball from the tee,
Right.
and it lands on the green, and it rolls down the hill, and there's already a ball next to the hole,
Right.
and it bounces off this ball and goes into the hole, and you just see him throw his club up in the air, and the crowd start going absolutely crazy.
See, that's not something you expect in golf, with the whole crowd participation and the roaring fans.
No, because everyone says it's a bit of a mundane sport, really, don't they? And
Yeah.
the fans, there's no atmosphere, but watch it on TV, it looks amazing.
I think it could be a good turning point for golf, actually, in terms of taking away that kind of stuffiness that we all associate with it.
Yeah.
The Olympics turns pretty much every sport into a party. I mean, if it allows beach volleyball, then anything goes, basically. Doesn't it? So I think it could be an opportunity for the guys that play and the women, of course, on the circuit, normally to let their hair down a little bit, and to be playing for a country like they do in the Ryder Cup. The Ryder Cup really seems to get, certainly
Huge
the
event,
European
isn't it? Yeah.
players, they really up the ante against the Americans. So I think that kind of playing for somebody other than yourself is going to be a nice experience for them. And as it's going to be in Rio, I mean, playing on a Southern Hemisphere course again, it's going to be a different challenge. So I think it's going to be really exciting to watch.
So me and Elle have been having a little think about sports that we'd like to see introduced. So obviously rugby sevens and golf have just been introduced, but something new. Is there anything in particular that you'd like to see introduced?
Yeah, I'd like to see sport climbing. It's in the shortlist already for Tokyo 2020.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good option because it's a completely different sport to anything that already exists. I think skateboarding and surfing are up there as well, but they are actually, I think they're a little bit harder to referee. And a lot of people have argued that surfing is, by its very nature, is random because it's to do with the wave. So by doing it on an artificial wave, it takes away from what the actual sport is. But with sport climbing, it's a really exciting sport to watch for a start. You can have some amazing falls when people go tumbling off the rocks. And it's got different elements. There's bouldering, there's lead climbing and speed climbing. And I think for an audience that's never seen that before, it could be really thrilling.
Yeah, I know. So from my perspective, I'd really love to see ultimate introduced, actually. So you may know it as ultimate frisbee. It gets a lot of bad press about it being a bit of a joke sport, but it's IOC recognised. You got the World Ultimate and Guts Championships taking place in June, in July. But it's a bit like netball, actually. So you can't move with the disc, and you have to get the disc into the opposing team's end zone. So there's a lot of heroic interceptions, pinpoint accuracy, and there's actually no referees.
Oh, really?
So it's all about good sportsmanship. So they actually have to call their own fouls,
Oh, cool.
which is a bit strange when you think about it, but it works quite well.
That's really interesting. Now, you're going to laugh at me, but the sport I want to see introduced it's quite a magical sport. It involves snitches and broomsticks and quaffles. It is the sport we all know from Harry Potter films. It's Quidditch. And you're going to laugh at me for suggesting it, but colleges in the US actually transformed it into a game that could be played by muggles like you and I. And it's done in quite an interesting way where you have one player who is the snitch. And so instead of a floating ball, you have a person dressed in yellow, a player in yellow, with a little tail on, like in tag rugby, and he's released in the 18th minute, and the seeker has to go in and chase him and rip his tail off. And other than that, you have people scoring goals through hoops, like in basketball. And there's also a dodgeball element, where a beater is given a bludger, and he can throw that bludger, at any of the players on the opposing team in order to distract them and stop them scoring a goal or intercepting. So there's all kinds of elements from tag rugby to basketball to netball to dodgeball. So it's a really interesting sport. See, guys, how incredible does that look? I'm telling you, Tokyo 2020, and we're going to see Olympic Quidditch teams. And if you guys at home want to see the rest of the video, just visit the Edge TV website. That's www.edge-tv.co.uk.
And don't forget, you can get involved with our conversation. Whose idea do you like the most? Probably mine, Eve's or Elle's, or have you got a sport you think would be better at the Olympics? Let us know on Twitter at EdgeTV_sports and use the hashtag SportsSunday.
Moving on, we know what sports we'd love to see at the Olympics, but what about the athletes? Eve, there's a lot of athletes competing at Rio 2016, like Usain Bolt, Mo Farah, Jessa Ennis-Hill, who we all know and love very well. But what about the underdogs?
Well, there's some really interesting people coming through this time. There's a Dutch sprinter called Daphne Schippers, who just burst onto the sprinting scene last year. She actually medalled at the World Championships behind Shelley-Ann Fraser-Pryce, who has won everything. And she's actually pushing for getting onto the top of that podium. She's about a 6'2" blonde Dutch woman, and against this tiny little Jamaican, so it's the most mismatched event you've ever seen. But she's a really interesting prospect, and she's putting the Netherlands up there, in there for sprint medals, which is absolutely crazy. That has never been done before.
Okay. What about on a UK level? Because we spoke about Daphne Shippers, who's Dutch, but what about from Britain?
I think the people we need to look out for are unusually for us the field eventers this year. We've got a young long jumper called Lorraine Eugen, who actually medalled at the World Indoors this year. She beat Charlotte Proctor, who's the British record holder. So she's really exciting, and she could really do some big things this summer. And we've got a discus thrower called Jade Lally, who's thrown 2 personal bests and British records this winter. So we've got some really interesting prospects coming through that probably people might not have heard of before, but they could be the big names to look out for this summer.
What about on a Northwestern level? Because we've spoken about how proud we are of the Northwest. What about people from Bias?
Well, there's a high jumper called Chris Baker who has equalled the English indoor high jump record this year. And he's up there competing same sort of heights now as Robbie Grabars, who was the breakthrough athlete one of the breakthrough athletes of 2012. He got that bronze medal on Super Saturday. So he's very exciting. And we've also got Sophie Hitchin, who is she's broken the British record in the hammer. It seems to be that the field events are really coming on for Britain at the moment. So there's some people that we should be really looking out for.
So with all these athletes coming through, we know everybody loves an underdog. Would you say a competition like the Olympics opens itself to these lesser known athletes coming through and shocking the public?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you remember, as I said before, Super Saturday, and we had Jess and Mo, and we were convinced that, those are our 2 gold medals, they were going to happen. And then all of a sudden along comes this long jumper, Greg Rutherford, who's this guy, and he jumps 8 metres 31 and wins the Olympic gold. Nobody saw that coming. He'd been plagued with injury, and everybody had kind of written him off. He was a bit of a nearly man. And then he's gone on to win the European title, Commonwealth title, World title. It's the 5th British person in history to ever hold all 4 at the same time.
It's turned him into a superstar.
It has. It's turned him into an absolute superstar, and that's what the Olympics can do for you. It's that platform. It can just throw you right out there into the stratosphere.
Now, when we were preparing for this show, we looked back to the London 2012 Olympics, and we were absolutely amazed at how well Team GB performed. And then we had a thought. If we split up England into the different regions of the country, just how well would the Northwest have performed in the London 2012 Olympics? So the amazing production team at Sports Sunday have put together a short video that answers that very question.
The Northeast, the Northwest, Yorkshire and Humber, West Midlands, East Midlands, South West, South East, London, and the East of England. Lane 1, West Midlands. Lane 2, North West. Lane 3, South East. Lane 4, South West. Lane 5, Yorkshire. Lane 6, London. Lane 7, East England. Lane 8, North East. Lane 9, East Midlands.
And they're off. Yorkshire's flying out of the blocks. The North East is now looking at fine form, making up ground with every stride. The West Midlands are making a charge, trying to make up for their earlier mishap, and they seem to be. But wait! They've taken a tumble and the West Midlands are out of contention. Going into the final straight now, and London are finishing very fast, but it doesn't look like they're going to catch the 2 athletes out in front. Yorkshire and the Northwest are neck and neck. It's going to be a photo finish. And Yorkshire have won it on the line, and it's gold for Yorkshire. Yorkshire are clearly over the moon with their performance and it's been rewarded with a gold medal. Now let's see what that does to the medal table.
Amazing. Just to provide a bigger perspective on this, if we were to compare these results with the official medal table from London 2012, the northwest of England would have finished an amazing 18th place out of 204. This would have put the northwest ahead of Brazil, Jamaica and Kenya.
Wow.
How amazing is that? How surprised are you by this?
I'm really surprised. I had no idea. I mean, you hear Kenya and Jamaica and you think, well, they've got to be near the top somewhere. They generally score loads of medals themselves. So that's amazing that just a region of the UK can do that.
Well, we actually drew with gold medals with London. So the fact that the northwest is pulling in the same as the capital of the country is just crazy, don't you think?
Well, I suppose initially it sounds surprising, but then you think, of course, we've got the National Centre for Cycling up here, and some of the best medals from the Games came out of Manchester. We had, Laura Trott, and then there was the two team pursuit teams, and of course Sir Chris Hoy and Victoria Pendleton. They were legends, and they were based here, so they are ours. Of course, we haven't got them anymore.
No,
they've both retired, so it's going to be tough for the cycling team to reach those heights again.
What do you think of the state of athletics and Olympics in the northwest?
We've got some really great people going from the northwest into the Olympics. There's a lot of swimmers based here, and as I say, cyclists, and of course Jay Jones and Bianca Walkenden from the Taekwondo team. But in terms of athletics, there's some really great clubs that are now producing top level athletes. Sarah Mundy Davis trains here, she's at Trafford, Chris Baker's from Sale, and we've got Katarina Johnston Thompson at Liverpool. So yeah, the Northwest is certainly providing some of the UK's top athletes.
So would you say that in the Northwest, athletics has been getting more and more popular over the years?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think actually as a sport nationally, it's getting more important to people. The Park Run series, which now has something like 850 runs every Saturday morning. Wow. It's just so many of them, it's crazy. And that's all over the country. You get hundreds of people turning up at these parks for free running. It's just brilliant. And then we've got places like Chorlton Runners, who are based in South Manchester, who've actually had to close their doors to new members because there are so many people that they just can't take anymore, and they're actually disturbing the peace by the amount of people that they have running. So yeah, it's really quite growing.
Now, we were surprised and amazed by how well the Northwest did in the medal tables for 2012. Do you think we're going to do even better this year?
I hope so. As I say, the cyclists have got their work cut out, although I think the Taekwondo team's really come on, and a lot of the swimmers that are based here are now getting to that level where they are winning world championships. So yeah, I think we've got a pretty decent chance, but I just hope that the loss of our two historic cyclists isn't going to cost us.
Yes.
I think we definitely got a bright future ahead though. You mentioned like Laura Trott, especially with cycling. She's doing phenomenally at the moment. We've got so many coming through the ranks.
Yeah, Laura Trott, and then there's a lot of younger girls, especially in women's cycling, that are really pushing now for those places. Katie Archibald in particular, she's fantastic, and they're winning on the world circuit, but they're just not quite at the same level as they were before. So even bringing Wiggo and Cav back into the team from their road cycling exploits of previous Olympics, they've got an awful lot to do before they get to that level. They only came second at the World Championships in the team pursuit, so I know Bradley Wiggins was not happy with that. No, not at all. But Cavendish, of course, he was the only guy at 2012 not to get an Olympic medal, so we need to sort that out for him, don't we?
Now, unfortunately, that's all we have time for this week, but here on Sports Sunday, we don't like our guests to go home empty-handed. So in true traditional Olympic fashion, Eve, we'd actually like to present you with your traditional Olympic medal.
Thank you.
Your traditional Olympic diploma. And rather than a branch of olives, which we could not find in Manchester at this time, we got you a jar of olives.
Perfect, I'm starving.
You're now an Olympian.
Thank you.
A huge thank you to everyone involved with this week's show, especially to Eve Langford. And make sure you tune in next week for more Sports Sunday. Goodbye for now.